all of this conversation about the motherfucking gummies, and they weren't found till April. After a very long day one, we're back for day two. It's Tuesday. It's February 24th, 2026. We have waited for the Kouri Richins trial to begin for a very long time, and we are finally here. For those of you new to this case, Kouri Richins is accused of the 2022 aggravated murder of her husband, victim Eric Richins. She's also accused of the Valentine's Day attempted murder, or it seems as the defense is calling it, the sandwich incident. And there are also a few fraud counts related to life insurance that we will hear about. Yesterday, we were in the wildest cross-examination of all time. I don't know what was happening. And I like Attorney Ramos. Attorney Ramos in the pretrial motions was measured and reasonable. And then yesterday, Ramos was just like, theater nerd activate. And I don't know what happened.
Was Ms. Richins' emotional reaction consistent with what you typically see?
I don't like that question.
No.
Please describe that.
Well, I'm on scene at a death call.
They probably know what the answer is going to be. Here's why I don't like that question, to be fair. People react to grief in all different kind of ways, but we did not see the entirety of the video, so maybe they know something that we don't.
Normally, you know, the victim, they have tears. They look at me when I ask them a question.
I mean, that part's really
respond.
fair. That's really fair.
They're pretty direct when I ask
fair.
a direct question. It just, every time I spoke to Miss Richins, it just seems like her face was in her hands and I couldn't see her face.
That's fair.
I think at one time I even leaned down and just tried to look to see her emotions. But, you know, it was just a little abnormal.
How many times had you encountered Miss Richins having lost a loved one?
Never.
Never.
Never. In fact, when I was just asking you questions before, you said, I don't know Miss Richins.
That is correct.
That you can't tell what exactly she's feeling.
Correct.
If you can't say it's abnormal.
Stop. No, he said it was abnormal from his experience with other people.
All the other calls that I've been on.
Let's talk about those other calls. What did you say? You said victim. You specified victim in response to Ms. Shervanak's question. That it was victims looking you in the eye, crying about what had just happened to them.
Shit.
Correct?
Correct.
It's very intense, Mr. Ramos.
You didn't mention that it was somebody who lost somebody. Correct?
I did not.
Okay. Now, we could argue forever about...
You missed the point that he was referencing Kouri Richins as a victim because she is the one who had lost someone. He was not referencing Eric Richins in that moment. He was actually referencing your client.
Whether your emotions
family
on the
members
stand
are
or
considered
mine
victims
are abnormal or not. Correct?
You're
The fact is, at the end of the day, no matter what Ms. Shervanak asks you or what I ask you, you don't know whether or not or what Ms. Richins was feeling.
correct.
Correct.
Describe for the jury what we're looking at here on your body camera.
So this is the cabinet that was above the toilet that I was mentioning earlier that was on the right side as you walk into the bathroom.
And this is the bathroom attached to the master bedroom.
Correct. This is the bathroom that I had mentioned earlier.
Are you opening the cabinet? It's kind of hard to see. We only have the bottom.
Yes.
And what are you looking for?
So again, I'm looking for medication that is prescribed to Mr. Richins.
And so you testified that you're looking for medications of Mr. Richins, and you're not doing a full, complete search of this house, are you?
No, I'm not.
You're looking in that cupboard above the toilet. There were no THC gummies in there, were there?
Not that I could see, no.
And you opened it up and you looked inside.
Correct.
You didn't see any weed gummies in there.
I did not.
So in the body cam that we just saw, which is on your left, you're looking at a pill bottle, correct?
Correct.
And you took a photograph of that bottle?
I do not recall if I took a photograph of that bottle.
So the photograph on the right, is that the same bottle?
I believe so.
All right, we'd move to admit 1-8. That's the hydrocodone bottle, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, you said we saw in the video, you were looking at the cupboard above the toilet.
Correct.
Did you look on top of that cupboard?
I do not recall if I did.
Well, that's a very high cupboard, correct?
Correct. I believe so.
So you wouldn't be able to see the top of the cupboard unless you got up on the toilet, true?
Probably.
All right. And are you aware that later that is where all the THC gummies were located?
I wasn't made aware of that, no.
And you pulled something out of that nightstand, right?
Yes.
If we could show the witness exhibit 1-8, please. What is that?
That is the pill bottle that I found in the nightstand.
We're after the morning break. We're before the lunch break. We have an issue of photo confusion that I want to see if gets cleared up, but it's something that I have clocked immediately. We'll see if anyone else clocks it. They know more than we do. The photo confusion is between the volunteer fire department personnel who recovered a prescription pill bottle from the nightstand and said that that was the same bottle that we saw in opening statements, with the defense saying that the expiration date was actually not the expiration date, that photo. But earlier in testimony, we saw a different officer who had got things from the bathroom and then was filling them out. And then they did a side-by-side of what that officer was filling out and the photo from opening and said, are those the same? And I don't remember if he said they appear to be, it looks like it. And I'm like, well, he's writing down the prescription numbers. It would be on the log. There is a disconnect for me between those two because the defense is trying to connect two different bottles from different places to one photo that they used in opening. So I have asterisks on that. I've got a question.
The COVID swab for
An important question in this case.
SARS-CoV-2, which is the organism name, that was positive. So he did test positive for
Okay.
COVID. And my understanding is that he had been sick with COVID-like symptoms, more of like a cold, recently prior to his death. But at the time of
The follow-up would be,
autopsy,
is
he
that a
did
cause of
not show
death?
any evidence of
Right.
like pneumonia that we would normally see for someone who's dying from COVID.
Today has been interesting. When we finally get to the ME taking the stand, we're just going through pretty neutrally and easily the ME's findings. We haven't gotten to the main findings of the medical examiner's report. It does seem like Mr. Ramos is doing the cross-examination of the ME, but what we are seeing from the ME's testimony so far is that because this was not the readily obvious cause of death, you didn't have gunshot wounds, injury to the heart, things like that, the ME went through and did a very thorough autopsy, evaluating what was going on with the lungs. Because he had a history of allergies, was anaphylaxis an issue? Because he had recently had COVID and the COVID test that they did came back positive, was COVID an issue? And all of the different systems and seeing what was going on with all of the different bodily systems, and went through that with quite a bit of depth to rule out before anything was ruled in. And I appreciate coroners tend to be pretty methodical. I appreciate how methodical we have seen this coroner be.
So with the information available to me at the time of the autopsy, the decedent did not have a history of any kind of illicit drug use or prescription medication abuse. So the fentanyl level should have been 0. There should not have been any fentanyl or norfentanyl present. The fact that I have fentanyl present tells me that fentanyl was obviously
Ingested in some way.
at some point
Right.
recent. And then if you try to manipulate from the information that's available in the toxicology report, as well as other
I like
toxicology
ascertain better
references,
there.
then there's kind of estimated therapeutic range versus toxic range versus
15
versus
nanograms
deadly?
per milliliter, is that a toxic range?
In someone who is not prescribed this medication and taking it routinely, it is toxic. Sulfuram was prescribed December 9th of 2019 by Dr. Andrew Peterson.
And does it have multiple uses?
It does. As a prescribed drug, it's commonly used for alcohol prevention. So another common name for it is antabuse.
I see.
And then as an off-label use, it's used for chronic symptoms of Lyme disease.
I see.
Right.
And naltrexone.
Remember when the defense at the beginning said, we're going to show you two pictures and the prosecution's going to show you the witch and we're going to show you the widow in a fur coat? And they've been trying to show you the prescriptions and insinuate that the prescriptions are being used for alcohol abuse, not Lyme disease.
What was your opinion of the cause of death?
My opinion of the cause of death was drug intoxication by fentanyl.
In addition to the NMS labs, was there other evidence that you looked at, specifically, say for example, pulmonary edema, that corroborated the information that NMS labs provided?
Yes, he had heavy lungs and foamy edema. You know, like I said
Right.
before, some of that could have been contributed to the CPR, but it was still quite an abundant amount that was present. So I would have a hard time excluding that wasn't also caused by the drug intoxication.
That's primarily occurs due to opioids?
Yes,
And
it can happen with other medications too that cause respiratory
Right.
depression.
but there weren't any other intoxicants or medications
There were. No, there were.
other than
That-
fentanyl
There,
that
yeah,
were
there were.
prescribed or that were contributing.
that we know of.
Yeah, there were other things that counsel. What?
There was quetiapine found. Fentanyl found.
Yeah.
Quetiapine can cause some sedation.
Right.
But in this instance,
didn't follow up on
where
that,
we
but-
didn't initially see it in the blood,
Mhm.
I don't know what to make of that since it was only seen in the gastric.
What opinion did you come to with regards to manner of death?
Could not be determined because this investigation was still ongoing when I retired. I felt that could not be determined was the best solution for me to finish my report before I retired.
Okay. So, were there some, since the investigation's ongoing, you didn't have access to certain things?
Correct.
Did you have access to the forensic examination of electronic devices?
No,
Did you have access to financial documents investigation?
no.
Here's the things I wanted to see made more clear. And again, more often than not, down the road, I'll be like, oh, this is why they didn't do this then. This is where my brain's out. These are the things I would have liked to have seen. I think they could have developed more that there was no THC in the system, like expressly instead of just by exclusion, especially when she said, oh, Kouri told me that he had taken THC gummies. Okay, was there any THC in his system? No. Great. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more developed regarding metabolism, how that process stops, when that process stops, the difference between stomach contents and what they found in the blood. However, if they are bringing in a toxicologist, that is probably the better person to ask. I am just impatient. It is going to be significant stomach contents versus what is in the blood because of how quickly he may have died after ingesting something. I would like to see that developed more in this trial. I'm very interested in that. I'm interested to see, Kouri is saying he didn't take any of these medications for the last 4 months. We'll see.
The food particle that was, you indicated that you saved it. Is that correct? Food particles
The gastric contents,
and the gastric contents, correct?
we saved a portion of it.
Okay. And did you locate any THC gummies in there?
Nope.
Okay. Did you look for them? I should have asked that first.
I'm sure they would have melted by then.
That's fair enough.
And There was no measurable THC in the toxicology analysis either. I don't know that I would have had to order that specifically. I can't remember.
When Mr. Richins actually passed, do you know?
No.
Okay. So the time of death is just the time it was called.
That's correct. We have limited information that we can go by, last known alive time, and when CPR was performed, once they stopped performing it. And if there's no obvious information in between, there's maybe some soft factors that we can use to kind of narrow it down. But typically, I'm going to go by last known alive time and when his time of death was called by EMS or in the emergency room or wherever.
So after you have all the information, you've gotten everything back from NMS Labs, you've spoken with everybody, the world of that information, the answer you came up with was not determined.
That's correct.
Okay. And I know you've been retired. When did you retire?
January 1st, 2023.
So about 6 months before, right? In that time, did you see in your line of work overdose deaths
All the time.
from fentanyl?
All the time.
Accidental?
All the time.
Not determined?
I probably saw some of those as well.
And then I imagine suicide?
Yep.
Would you say that during your time that has increased? That number that you saw?
During that era, yes.
And what era would that be? 2020 to 2022?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay.
2018 to 22.
You've seen a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of fentanyl overdoses recent or before you retired.
Yes.
Okay.
The medical examiner has testified, and what has become abundantly clear is that we are also going to see a toxicologist. We know that the prosecution has an expert, not just in toxicology, but also in effects of opioids. I don't remember if they are the same person, but the medical examiner testified fairly thoroughly, not just about the autopsy, but also about some of the findings. My key takeaways from this, and some of them are going to have to be answered by the toxicologist, but my key takeaways on this is that victim Eric Richins had no THC in his system. No THC in his blood, no THC in his stomach contents, no THC. However, she did say, I don't think I needed to request that specifically. And then they just kind of let that go. That's an asterisk for me. I'm very curious to see if that would have needed to be requested specifically. However, in this case, she did not have her full file. They talked about THC gummies quite a lot. I can't imagine that that wouldn't have been tested for. Then we saw that there was no alcohol metabolized in Eric Richins' blood or in the other fluid that they tested, the viscous fluid. There's alcohol in the stomach, and the coroner said we cannot determine if that's alcohol that was ingested in a drink or if that's from decomposition. Ethanol is ethanol. We can't parse that out. But there were other things in the stomach contents that were not metabolized into the body. And I'm interested to see how they round all those back. But the defense asked a very good question. Can you tell if the fentanyl and alcohol were ingested at the same time? And she said, no, there's really no way to tell that. But there was fentanyl in the stomach contents. There was also fentanyl in his blood and some fentanyl metabolized into his blood. We're going to hear more about that in toxicology. And I think where we will get in toxicology is that there were things in the stomach contents that just didn't have time to metabolize at all because he died. So I'm interested to see how quickly they talk about that. And there were some other things that were in Eric Richins' stomach contents that we are going to hear about from toxicology. I am not going to spoil it because we're going to find out where some of those things are from. We saw it in pretrial motions, but the Quetiapine, I think I pronounced that correctly. I think, are going to see more discussion about that when we get to toxicology, not with this coroner. So, cause of death, fentanyl overdose, fentanyl poisoning. Drug intoxication by fentanyl is the exact language she used. And then manner of death, undetermined.
It's kind of hard to see in the photograph, but is one of those prescription bottles a prescription for Quetiapine?
Yes.
And is that
I would hate to think that the defense was just delaying that inevitable question and answer, but that is the point. Is one of those prescriptions under the name Kouri Richins for Quetiapine? The Quetiapine is prescribed to Kouri Richins. How did it get into Eric's system?
prescription, that bottle prescribed to Kouri Richins?
Yes, it is.
I want to turn your attention to April 13th of 2022. Were you present for a search of the Willow Court home on that date?
Yes, I was.
What was collected from that location?
Several packages of THC gummies and edibles.
Did you document those?
Yes, I did.
Wait. The photos of the THC gummies and edibles weren't from March? They were from April? But the other dude searched that cabinet. All of this conversation about the motherfucking gummies and they weren't found till April? It's only day 2. We've been in trial for 700 years. Here are some of the things that are really interesting to me. 1, we know that we're going to get to a toxicologist, and so I'm going to try to slow my roll, but there are things that I am really interested to see a toxicologist explain, including the difference between what was in the blood test for Eric Richins, what was in the gastric content, and the timing that indicates about how quickly he died from presumably what he ingested and what was with that. We also saw that Kouri Richins had a prescription that was recovered from the house for Seroquel. It was for the generic form. I am going to say the generic form absolutely wrong, but that was also located, that medication was in Eric Richins' stomach contents. And I know many in the chat were frustrated because I was like, wait, can we wait? Because there were a lot of you that are watching this trial for the first time that did not know that that was her prescription or where that came from. So from the coroner, we learned that there was the Seroquel in Eric Richins' stomach contents, not in the blood at all. And we got to see that that was Kouri Richins' prescription recovered from the home in April. We also got to unequivocal evidence that there is no THC in Eric Richins' system, not in the stomach contents, not in the blood. There is no THC in Eric Richins' system. Maybe when we get to toxicology, they will talk about how long THC can last in the body. We didn't hear that today from the coroner, but we did hear that there is no THC in the system. We also learned that while there was ethanol, alcohol, in Eric Richins' stomach contents, there was not any in the blood or other fluid that was tested, which could indicate 2 things. Either that had not been metabolized, or there is alcohol in his system from the beginning stages of decomposition. So from there, we also saw that there were gummies recovered. And I had been wondering when we got to the CSI witness that there were gummies recovered from the house in April. All the gummies were recovered in April. I thought, honestly, by the way that the testimony was coming in, I thought that we were going to have somebody be like, oh no, we recovered them on the top of the cabinet based on the cross-examination. Because you see how cross-examination can shift what you're thinking about. And when they asked law enforcement, oh, but did you search the top of the cabinet? And he said, no, I think a lot of you were probably where I was at. And I was like, oh, they must have been recovered from the top of the cabinet. My bad. Because they weren't recovered from on top, like the exterior top of the cabinet. They were recovered from the top shelf of the cabinet in April, the cabinet that they recovered Eric Richins' prescriptions from the early morning hours when he died. Okay. We also have a number of phones that have been recovered, and we have not gotten into the phone extractions yet. We had at the break at one point the defense talking about an altered document, which seems to be like a version 1, version 2, and not actually like nefariously altered. And I think that we saw a completely different Ramos today than we saw yesterday, and a much better cross-examination in style today. And so I hope that we see that style of cross-examination going forward. I think Ramos made the points he needed to make, and we could see where the cross-examination was going with, did the coroner tell Kouri Richins that she was testing for fungus in Eric Richins' lungs? Did they talk about COVID? And was that the phone call that Kouri Richins was reacting to when telling her father-in-law that that was the cause of death? There's a lot of room, I think, for the defense to say she wasn't trying to mislead the father-in-law. She was just, it was a game of telephone, and he misunderstood and she misunderstood, and it's really not that nefarious, because it sounds bad the way it came out in opening. And I think there's room that we saw from the defense to push back on, can you tell if there's alcohol in the system? Ramos asked very clearly, is there a way to know if fentanyl and alcohol got into the system at the same time? And the coroner said, no, there's not. I think there's going to be some other things that narrow that timeline down, but I think he made some really good points on cross, totally different than what we saw yesterday with the pointless cross of Deputy Nguyen that seemed like it was never, ever, ever going to end. But I think what's really clear is that this trial is going to take possibly longer than we thought that it might. And we're going to have to see where the boundaries of the judge's patience are. Because when the judge is like, okay, but we can mark this, and we get to Attorney Nestor just sitting in court in front of the jury going, no, no, no. What are we doing? Okay. So tomorrow we will be back for day 3, and we will see what day 3 brings us. We do not have the prosecution witness list, but we're going to have more from the CSI. We're going to have cross-examination of the CSI tomorrow. I wonder if we'll start getting into the digital evidence and the phone downloads and what have you. I imagine that that will be close in time to when we're getting into the evidence that's being admitted. We will see what happens tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the LawNerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.